up, folks? Sean, the Average Angler, and we are back with another one for the beginner series. And look, I've got a ton of jig videos on my channel, okay? So this one's gonna be very basic, very help the guy that isn't confident in jig fishing or has not jig fished in the past, okay? I've got jig suggestions for you here. We're gonna keep it really simple and focus on getting you bit and getting confidence in fishing a jig. Here we have a jig, and this is a very simple jig. For those that have watched my other videos, I prefer a hand-tied jig. Okay, this is what I normally use right here. California Reservoir Lures. That's a hand-tied football jig. This is a 1/2 ounce. Now, what you will notice pretty much in every jig I come up with the exception of black and blue, is most of the time they are going to be some sort of brown and purple. This one happens to be watermelon candy because, quite honestly, watermelon candy color to me is just kind of a get bit color. It gets bit really well. And with jig fishing, I think it's very, very important for the fishermen to get confidence in fishing a jig. So we're here today to get you confidence in fishing a jig. We're gonna keep it simple and get into bigger and better things, because there's a whole lot to jig fishing, but the main thing is getting confidence. All right, so this is a Berkley finesse jig, okay, right there. 3/8 ounce. Now, typically, most of the time I don't go under 1/2, but there's a reason for this, okay? One, it's smaller, it's wintertime, it's gonna fall slower. Sometimes you can get the attention of the fish with a slow fall. I did say it's compact, okay? To me, this skirt's a little long for compact. So we are simply going to go right behind the hook and trim it down, okay? Don't do that in your house, it'll piss your wife off. I have a bowl here. Most of it missed the bowl, but that's all right. I'll tell her it was all in the name of YouTube. All right, so there you go. We've got our skirt trimmed down. It's just past the back of the skirt there. And for a trailer, the Yamamoto in this green pumpkin, purple, and copper matches really, really well with the watermelon candy. It matches really well with just about anything. Now, on the new Yamamotos, they didn't used to do this, but you'll see they're attached there. So we want to separate that. I'm going to pull that little piece off of the tip there. Same thing on this side. You can use the full 5-inch on this. I am going to probably trim it down just about a 1/2 inch off of that. Okay, about there. I want the tails to be clear of the skirt, but I still want to keep it compact. And we're just going to thread that baby on there, okay? Thread it on, slide it on up over the hook keeper, push that baby forward, and there you go. We got us a little compact jig, okay? Now, the reason I happen to pick this Berkley one out, I just found them on sale. I like the jig, its simplicity. The colors are good. It's got a really good 4/0 hook in it for a finesse jig. Okay, you don't have to do too much with it, so I like it. I don't have to trim. The weed guard looks good. It's not overly, if you want to thin it out a little bit, you can thin it out, but you don't need to trim it. The length is fine. We are going to throw this in a few spots, okay? Number one, the obvious one is going to be points. Points. We're going to cast it up shallow, and look at times, Cora, you can cast it all the way onto the bank. sometimes this works really, really well. So this is a secret that goes beyond the beginner. Cora, cast it onto the bank and then drag it in. Oftentimes, fish position just out of sight and facing the bank, waiting for something to come in, which is then easy pickings for them. So a lot of times, if we cast up, it splashes, hit the water, they're tuned into knowing that that's not something real. But when something walks in off the bank, and it wouldn't be unusual for a crawdad to crawl in to the water off the bank. So that's one place. We're gonna work that out to the depth, 25, 30 feet, really depending on where I'm marking bait. Anytime you go out fishing and you're in a boat or a kayak and you have a fishing graph, pay attention to the depth of the bait. You'll start to see a common depth. Not all of them, but the majority will be in a certain depth. That tends to be the depth that I want to target. Okay, this is a 3/8. You're gonna have to fish it slow. That's part of the point of using the 3/8. We want to keep that jig on the bottom. That 3/8 is gonna force you to fish a little slower to do so. All right. Other spots besides points might be humps. Okay, you find a high spot out somewhere. Oftentimes you can find them out off of points in narrower parts of the lake where 2 points might be sort of facing each other. Oftentimes there may be a hump out there. There could also be a ridge or a drop off. There could be a channel swing. These are all highways, popular spots for fish to hang out and feed. Creek channels. Now, the jig is not necessarily the fastest way to cover water, so we want to try to stay in those high percentage spots. One thing you always want to do, or I always want to do, is stay with hard bottom. Okay, if I got mucky bottom, it's not really where I want to fish the jig. Not to say you can't catch some there, because there's always the exception to the rule. I just find that hard spots tend to be higher percentage get bit areas. Okay. The other place you can throw them is on rock banks. Okay, steep rock banks where you can maybe drag it off, let it fall, let it sit for a bit, drag it off, let it fall, stair step it down, right? That works sometimes too. I really like points. I really like for someone new trying to gain confidence in jig fishing to just run points. Just run from point to point to point, give each one 15, 20 minutes, move on. It's points oftentimes are about intersecting the fish when they move up. Winter fishing in general can be that way. Okay, the jig is a really good way to cover that. Okay, especially if you got spotted bass in your lake. And the compact jig, it's still a good meal, but it's small, right? I mean, you see, it's, now I got big hands, but it's, you know, half of my thumb. So it's not that big of a meal. Very easy for them to eat this. And that Yamamoto twin tail works really, really well. And I throw the same thing on my regular jig when I'm fishing it. So, all right. What are we going to fish this on? Now, again, because we're trying to gain confidence and let you learn how to fish it, one, it's a 3/8. So we're going to base it kind of off the fall we want. I'm going to start out with 12-pound fluorocarbon, or you can use mono for that matter. It doesn't really matter. If you want to fall a little faster, you can go down to 10. If you want it to fall a little slower, you can go up to 14, 15-pound test. But 12 is plenty to penetrate this hook. It's not a heavy-duty hook, but it's not really a light wire, but it's super, super sharp. We have a soft weed guard there, so it shouldn't be a problem setting the hook. All right, now the rod, I typically use a 7.4 or 7.5. For this application and for learning, I'm going to recommend you use a 7-foot. Everybody probably has one, like a 7-foot medium fast action, 7-foot medium heavy fast action, something like that. Okay, we want fast action, not moderate, not crankbait or chatterbait style action. We want a fast action, not extra fast. Hopefully there aren't too many of those still around these days. The lighter rod's going to be a little easier to feel things. So if you use the medium, you'll be able to feel a little better. And as you tune in advance, then you'll probably want to extend that up to a medium heavy. And then you'll want to extend it up to a longer rod. Okay, I really like the 7'5" medium heavy. That's my preference. I love fishing a jig. I've been fishing a jig for a long, long time. My biggest fish on a jig is 12 pounds, 8 ounces. And believe it or not, it was on a little compact jig like that with that trailer. Okay, so these catch big fish. Jigs tend to catch bigger than average fish. They will get bit by small fish too, okay? This is a good time to go out and get tuned in and comfortable fishing a jig, because come February, you're gonna hear me start talking a lot more about fishing a jig and the giant bass that it can catch as those pre-spawn females start thinking about spawning and they need to fatten up, okay? February full moon is a turning point for me, okay? I start gearing up, believing I'm gonna catch a giant. Sean the average angler, get out there, learn to fish a jig, get confidence in a jig. And look, there's a ton of jigs on the market. There's a ton of independent, small guys, local guys, all that kind of stuff. Just to keep it simple, I'm just saying this Berkley compact finesse jig, and I got these cheap on sale, okay? So they're a good buy, because other jigs and these California reservoir lures are a great buy at $4.29. Most jigs now are $5 to $6. So these were half of that. Okay, $3, I got them on sale. Great jig, great hooks, ready to go. Just trim the skirt, put your trailer on, get out there and catch some fish. Sean the average angler, thanks for watching the beginner series again. It's been fun. We're gonna do some more. We'll see you on the next one.